Everybody ready to get this underway? All right, we'll call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission for November the 3rd. Please call the roll.
Chairman Wyckoff,
I am present.
Commissioner Cloud,
Here.
Commissioner Noble,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Marr,
Here.
Commissioner LaRue.
You recording me?
Commissioner Dillon is absent.
All right, looks like we got a quorum, so we can do our thing. Thank you. Now it's time for public comment. If anyone here would like to comment, you're encouraged to do so. If you're addressing the Planning Commission, please step up to the podium, state your name and your address for the record. Limit your comment to 3 minutes, please. Please also do not include any topics that are on the agenda. We will get public comment on those items as those agenda items come up. Public comments for any quasi-judicial hearings that might be on the agenda. An affected person can become a party to this proceeding and is entitled to be present and present evidence at the hearing, which includes the sworn testimony of witnesses, relevant exhibits, and other documentary evidence, and to cross-examine all witnesses by filing notice of intent to be a party with the community development director not less than 5 days prior to the hearing. Having said all that fun stuff, is there anybody here who wants to make any public comment? Judging by the nobody here really from the public much, I'll say no. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the minutes from July 2025 that were emailed out to us earlier.
So moved.
Okay, got a motion and a second? Someone?
I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the 2025 minutes. Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who called for the first motion to approve.
I did.
Mr. Marr?
That was John Marr.
John,
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
Connolly was second.
All right. So that was a 2 and a 1. Dillon's not here. Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloud,
Yes.
Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, we're moving on to new business. The first item on the agenda is Resolution 2025-09, adopting an updated Madeira Beach master plan.
Okay, so before I turn this over to Andrew and team, I did just want to make a formal announcement. I really think this is one of the first meetings we've had since Ginny's departure. So she had stepped down. She, during the storm, had her second child and decided that, you know, she wanted to participate with that. I was just worded weird, but you know what I'm saying. Sorry, it's a long day. So she is available like 10 hours a week. So we are kind of using her part-time to kind of keep certain initiatives that she was a part of going. And the master plan was one of, I think, her, you know, career-wise for her, one of a great accomplishment for the city here. So we have been utilizing her, but with her departure, I was promoted into the position as Community Development Director from Community Development Engineer. So just wanted to make that formal announcement. When I was talking to Chuck, he didn't seem that he was aware of it. So I thought, well, he may not be the only one. So, and any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated as I step into this process. I take positive and negative feedback very well either way. So I would appreciate any comments you guys may have.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. All right,
Andrew?
come on down.
Do you want me to just get into it?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
All right. My name's Hannah Schaefer. I'm a urban planner at Kinley Horn. I'm the project manager for this project. I'm also joined by Madison Parker, who was one of the lead urban planning analysts on the project as well. So we're really excited to present to you the final draft of the master plan. I know we came to you about halfway through this project to give you all an update, hear your feedback. So we're really excited to share with you what we've done since then and kind of take you through the entire plan. I believe the entire plan draft was included in the agenda packet, so there's a lot in there. So we're just gonna go over some key items tonight. So if you have some more specific questions, we'd be happy to kind of dive into those after. All right, so yeah, we'll kind of start off with talking about the project process. We'll get into what we heard from the community engagement and how that influenced our recommendations in the final plan and how the implementation of the plan will occur and the next steps to finalize this process. So as a reminder, what the master plan is, it really is an overall guiding document for the city that outlines goals, objectives, and strategies that are 5, 10, 20 years down the road for the city. So these projects and strategies and initiatives can be included in the CIP, into other department budgets, and you can also apply for grant funding and partner with other agencies to accomplish these goals as well. So the overall process, we got started with this about spring 2024, and that was really our initial data gathering phase where we had a lot of community engagement, a lot of data gathering just to find out what the existing conditions are, what are some concerns, challenges, and also opportunities within the city. So this was a really large portion of the plans just to understand what those current challenges and opportunities are. And around that time was when the 2 hurricanes hit. So that was a relatively good timing in this process as we were still able to incorporate maybe new challenges or new opportunities into the plan as well. So that second phase really occurred after that is when we started to form these goals, recommendations, and strategies that will occur within the plan. And so we are now in this final phase where we have our draft recommendations and we're really finalizing those into the implementation strategy. And I'm going to turn over to Madison, and she's going to talk about the community engagement process.
Good evening, everyone. So as you all know, community engagement was a massive part of this undertaking, and I really do feel like this was kind of the core of the master planning process. As you know, we had over a dozen different touch points of community engagement during this entire planning process. We had 3 workshops. We had 2 online surveys that were open to the community. We also had multiple stakeholder meetings, targeted stakeholder meetings with FDOT, PSTA, Forward Pinellas, and other agencies in and around the county. And of course, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted everyone's voice, even visitors, people that had been spending time in Madera Beach that may not have lived here throughout, their entire duration, but still had a stake in the community because obviously they kept coming back. They had an appreciation for this place and they truly did love it and wanted to see it thrive. So by the numbers, we had 518 survey responses. It's really impressive, and I think you should all be very proud of everyone that participated in those surveys because we read every single one of them, and not only were they thoughtful responses, but they were fully fledged thoughts. People had a lot to say, and they were very, very passionate about participating in this entire engagement event. And many of you were attendees at these workshops that we hosted, and over the course of those 3 community engagement events, 147 people packed out these chambers, and that was really impressive. So again, you should be very proud of your community members and yourselves for participating in that. The targeted stakeholder meetings, like I said, covered FDOT, PSTA, Forward Pinellas, and of course we had pop-up events throughout the year. Those ranged from the Mary Market to the Wednesday morning market, the Trash Pirates, beach cleanups, and we were also at the Seafood Festival. So a wide range of events, a lot of different folks that attended those events. So we made sure that we tried to capture every single person throughout all walks of life and in all places throughout the community. So again, really, really impressive engagement for the city of Madera Beach. And again, since this was a truly community-driven vision for this master plan, we spent a lot of time talking to people. And as you can see, these were some of the direct quotes that were taken from members of the community. And these were really just what we used to kind of hone in on our focus areas and the recommendations that we were putting into this plan. Next, please. So of course, with that, all of those conversations, all of those interactions, they really help shape the 6 focus areas of this master plan. And we're going to go ahead and get into those, and I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah.
All right, so as Madison touched on, we did form those 6 focus areas from what we were hearing from the community. In every project that we do as urban planners, we don't come in with preconceived notions of what we're going to do. Obviously, there is data that can tell us a certain extent of what opportunities there might be, but we really do rely on community engagement to help form our recommendations, so we're able to interpret what the community is telling us and put that into strategies, policy, and projects through the urban planning perspective. So we formed these 6 focus areas, and we're gonna go through these, kind of give a gist of what we heard, some key themes, and then some key recommendations that are in the plan. Obviously, there's a lot more than what's on screen here. There's about over 100 recommendations across the 6 categories. But starting with transportation, I think the number one thing we heard was concern for safety on city streets, especially those major roadways like Gulf Boulevard and 150th Avenue, but also safety in the neighborhoods. How do you slow cars down in those neighborhoods where children might be playing in the streets or people might be walking due to lack of sidewalks or whatever it may be? So we have recommendations relating to safety studies, partnering with FDOT, Ford Pinellas to achieve those safer streets. We also heard about beautification on streets. I don't think I'm gonna shock anyone when I say Gulf Boulevard isn't the prettiest corridor. So there are opportunities to beautify the streets, to make it more comfortable to walk and bike and get around, so you don't have to rely on a personal vehicle to do that. And not only does it, increase the quality of life for residents, but also for visitors as well, and making it more memorable as they spend time here. And I think the other thing we heard a lot about was parking in the city. So we'll touch on that a little bit later too. So another focus area was new development and redevelopment, which I don't think the city is any stranger to. And I think the main thing we heard was people aren't necessarily afraid of new development. They just want it to look good. High quality development that matches the character of the city in the right location. So directing that development to those activity centers like the town center, Johns Pass, or even along near 140th Avenue. So really directing it to the appropriate places so that the neighborhoods remain intact and that the scale is appropriate for those as well. And other ways we can, help influence this is through the development of a architectural lookbook, making sure that development is matching the character of the city. And part of this project, we did provide text updates to the C3 and C4 zoning districts within the city. So these are primarily zoning districts along the major roadways like Gulf Boulevard and 150th Avenue. And as you all probably know, some of these parcels are smaller in size, which can make it more challenging for them to redevelop and improve. So what we've done is created more flexibility in the code by updating the text, so reducing setbacks, things like that, to make it easier for redevelopment and also development that the city wants. And next, for economic and business development, I think you all know there's a lot of people who come to the city for events, for your commercial services, retail, so you already have a good base that attracts a lot of people. So finding strategies to help build on that and so that the city can continue having those events. So that's where we get back to kind of the parking concern. Where are the locations where you might need more parking, especially for those high activity areas, for retail, tourism, or even those festivals. So looking at a location for a public parking structure. We also heard a lot about how people really want Madeira Beach to stay local in terms of retail and commercial, and making sure that you have those businesses that can remain here, and also encourage new local businesses to open up as well. Madison.
So of course, this was a pretty major talking point, both before and after the storms. Being on a low-lying barrier island, this is at the top of everybody's mind. So we had a lot of really, really good, productive conversations around sustainability and resiliency. And I think it's more important than ever to really have these conversations. So it was great to have them with the community, and we spent a lot of time on this focus area. And so a lot of what we heard, of course, was, how can we better prepare for, the future, the next time we have a storm or maybe multiple storms. I myself am a child of Hurricane Katrina. I was 14 years old on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, went through that. So I know all about picking back up and rebuilding and how important sustainability is, especially in a coastal community. So again, the community was really concerned about making sure that people were aware and also had the proper education of, what kind of flood protections were out there and what kind of resources would be available to them if they were interested in pursuing more sustainable, more resilient building practices in their day-to-day lives. So we made sure that we included that in our recommendations to highlight educational materials and make sure all of that is disseminated into the greater community. Also, there was discussion concerning potentially raising seawalls or elevating roadways. So looking at how to harden the infrastructure that was not only existing, but also potential future upgrades to infrastructure in Madera Beach. And it goes hand in hand with being sustainable. Of course, we all love our sea turtles here, and we want to make sure that we are trying to reduce single-use plastics and other materials that may be harmful to the wildlife that is in and around Madera Beach. And of course, always at the top of mind is stormwater management. We heard a lot from the community about even sunny day flooding occurring in some neighborhoods. So that is something that we want to address and something that we wanted to look at and make recommendations for. And the Parks, Recreation, and Public Spaces section of the master plan, again, a really, really interesting place to have a discussion because Madera Beach, while it is small, does have a lot to offer. You have beach, you have Rock Park, you have plenty of beautiful green spaces that exist within neighborhoods, and people want to highlight those spaces and make sure that they're being properly activated, properly used, and that they are accessible to the greater community, and that there's connectivity within all of these green spaces. So some of the comments that we heard from the community, of course, making sure that we highlight the existing green spaces and recreational areas within the city, and also potentially look at increasing those areas. Having a kid-friendly recreational area near the beach, that actually came up a lot. There are families that choose to come to Madera Beach. It feels a little bit more small, a little more quaint, a little more controlled, and it's their happy place for their families. So they would like to see an increase in more kid-friendly programming in some of those recreational areas. And of course, you have beautiful Rock Park right here behind us. So making sure that we highlight Rock Park if there is an increase in amenities that we take the community to mind when talking about those. And also making sure that visitors to Madera Beach are aware of having good stewardship of these coastal resources that Madera Beach is so proud to have. And last but not least, we have beautification and placemaking. Again, this goes hand in hand with making sure that Madera Beach is highlighting its natural resources, its open public spaces, and making sure that, that we're not overlooking things, but we're highlighting the beautiful parts of Madera Beach. So making sure that we maintain that fishing village feel that people so happily love to talk about. This came up a lot. I mean, this was like a day one conversation that people were willing to have with us about how Madera Beach started as a fishing village, and they don't want to lose that. And that's part of the history of the city. So making sure that we retain that, not only in how we talk about Madera Beach, but also how, development goes forward, making sure that we don't lose that sense of character. Also making sure that entrances to the city are big, they're beautiful. People want to know that they've arrived here. They want to know that they're in Madera Beach. They don't want to know that they're in, Reddington or some other beach. They want to know that they're here. And of course, people in the community want to be proud of being here. And so having a wayfinding plan or a neighborhood signage plan was also discussed with members of the community. And of course, little things to help beautify the city, like having resilient, salt-tolerant, and native landscaping, also very important to sustainability and resiliency, and making sure that the public does have opportunities to also participate in beautification. So potentially creating a mural program and a program in which members of the community could paint utility boxes and paint the storm drains that were in their neighborhoods. All right, I'm going to turn back over to Hannah.
So all these recommendations live in the master plan, and we've divided them not only by the focus area type, but also by the timing for implementation. Some are continuous, things that the city may already be doing, but will need to just continue doing annually or long-term. But then a lot of our recommendations are divided into short, mid, and long-term. And of course, those can change depending on funding sources or just whatever might be happening at the city. But what we really tried to do was identify what are some of those quicker win items and what might need to be longer term. It's certainly a priority, but it'll just be a longer term vision. And of course, some of these will just require partnerships with FDOT or Ford Pinellas or whoever it might be. So some of the key strategies we identified, I think, is looking for those grant opportunities and outside funding sources to help implement maybe some of these larger CIP budget projects that might be a priority but are going to be a longer term. So partnering with FDOT, partnering with the county, Ford Pinellas, and identifying those grant opportunities and making sure that the city is going after those and that they're on the radar so there's not missed opportunities as well. So some of the quick wins and long-term visions we wanted to touch on, I believe last time when we were here, I think we got the question, what's the thing we could go out and do tomorrow? What's something that might be longer term? And it's funny because we put this presentation together, about a month and a half ago, and you can see in the long-term vision, we have something that says increased supply of city-owned land to be used as public spaces, and that might be something that can be done sooner because you all have purchased a nice piece of property where you have that opportunity. So again, this is an example where something might be able to happen sooner than later. But some of the quick wins we identified are those safety studies where you can partner with FDOT, partner with Ford Pinellas to get those done because for improvements for those type of roadways, you generally do have to have a separate plan like that to have implementation. It has to be identified somewhere. So there's a lot of instances where we've identified what that first step is in order to achieve that long-term vision. And that is just an example of that. We identified updating the parking code to provide more flexibility. That right now could be a barrier to redevelopment. So to update that to reduce parking or offer bonuses depending on that. So that would be another quick term, something that city staff could do, so low budget. Another thing I briefly talked about before was that lookbook. Another thing that the city staff would be able to do, lower budget that you could implement pretty quickly. And then we also identified a Parks and Rec master plan, and that is really looking at the inventory of your park spaces right now. Are they meeting that level of service for the current city and community members? And that will really start to tell you where maybe some of those gaps are, where those opportunities are, and get that additional feedback from community members on how to better use those spaces, since that was a major item that came up in the engagement was the park spaces. And lastly, there are some land use designation discrepancies right now with the city. I believe Rock Park right now is identified as, I don't remember what the category is, but fixing some of those land use mishaps and making sure that land you don't want developed on won't be developed on. So some of those long-term visions already touched on the new city property that was purchased, but another opportunity could be a beachfront trail. We heard that come up a lot in the engagement. And that's another opportunity, to create recreation space, get people off of Gulf Boulevard for a safer, more beautiful walking trail. And then we also looked at some other multimodal connections to Pinellas County and to Pinellas Trail. And that's something that could be done in partnership with FDOT and Ford Pinellas as well. And then something we heard a lot was a lot of support for a Sunrunner-like bus to come to Madeira Beach, so that or a more transfer center that could connect to other routes within the greater part of the county. So we heard a lot of feedback on that. And then lastly, updating land development code to encourage more pedestrian-friendly public spaces and public realm. So encouraging development through bonuses or just requiring the code that they should provide those more walkable features. So our next steps in this is, we'll hear from you all tonight, get your feedback, and then our next step is to go to the commissioners next week for their regular meeting and present where they'll vote to approve the resolution for the new master plan. And then from there, I know the city's been talking about doing a strategic plan, so some of these recommendations in the master plan could feed into the strategic plan. Then ultimately, it'll be up to the city to kind of identify those funding opportunities within departmental budgets, but also if there's grant opportunities that they can pursue. And in one of the appendices, we do have a full grants matrix of applicable grants that we felt with the recommendations we have that the city could go for with the information that we have at this time for timing to help them out. So with that, we'll open it to any questions. I know we ran through a lot, but we're happy to go back to any slides as well.
I had a question.
Yeah.
In my former life, I did a lot of project development at Boeing, and we spent tons of time. So I really appreciate how difficult it is to take all of these workshops and all put it into one meaningful thing. And we beat ourselves to death on that multiple times. But typically, it just went dormant. It just died. And we never had a feedback loop to know whether or not we were actually executing tactically what we said we would do at the strategic level. The gotcha process from NASA is very cool. You should look that up. But if you haven't already. So if you could talk a little bit more about how this gets distilled into an action plan that, say, at least annually, the commissioners and the city manager would say, like a green light. I mean, we did a lot of green light charts. No action, red. We've started, but we're over budget, behind schedule, something's wrong, or green, we're on time, and we're doing okay. They give an idea to the people that made input. Yeah, we doing anything? Like the promenade on the beach, that's great. Amphitheater at Rock Park. There's a lot of really good ideas that do need to be kind of distilled into a manageable, budgetable, short-term, continual term. I think page 68 starts essentially what I would look at as an action plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At least for the continual and for the short-term stuff. I mean, when you get out 20 years or 10 years, maybe you don't need an action plan immediately for that. But for the shorter-term stuff, how are we going to get the people that we elected on a regular basis to say, hey, we scratched that one, we moved it to the midterm, we've started this one. Any thoughts on how we're going to lean on them? Because without that lean, I can tell you it'll just go on the shelf.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see that because it's a ton of work, and I read through almost all, but it was a lot. It's long.
It's not.
But I read through a lot of it, and it's like 90%. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
I hate to see it get lost.
And I'll say,
And like the
nothing,
2002 plan that got lost, that's what'll happen 100% of the
Yes.
time if we
And-
don't create a feedback loop somehow.
And that's not what we want to happen. There's
Right.
nothing we hate more than seeing plans.
I don't know if you had any thoughts on how to lean on it.
Yeah, I think there's multiple
that.
things that can be done. I think the way we did set up this plan, I think, is very useful for not only city staff, but also elected officials to look at, okay, what are we going to prioritize every year? And knowing that, the city is in this space where they do want to look at a more strategic plan where they will be going through, what are the more immediate projects? And I think that's where, community members can hold them accountable by saying, hey, you all voted to do these things at this meeting. This is also approved in the master plan. Where are we at on this? So we've set this up in a way that should be helpful for people to see the timing and understand, what is achievable. I think other forms that the city could do is having a tracking dashboard. We've done that with other projects where you can see, community members can see, and the city can also track, let's say, for example, it's a priority to add, X amount of feet of sidewalk in the city. The city can have this dashboard that says, hey, in this year we've added, 2,000 feet of sidewalk or whatever it might be. So having those metrics match, what some items in the master plan are. So that's an option too.
I was hoping in your submittal for approval that it would include, you really need to do this sort of feedback loop, dashboard, green lights, stoplight chart, some sort of thing, because it'll go dead. It'll absolutely just go on the shelf and
Yeah.
people will thank you for the good work and then they'll get on with their daily job. I've seen it a million times
Yeah.
at a very large company. And it was always disappointing to go to that work. So I was just wanted to encourage your team to put together a relatively blunt, this is what you'll need to do to be successful. If you don't do it, then it'll just be a nice job, great, thanks, clap, goes on a shelf. Right? People will come and go and they'll forget it's even there.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's a great point, because as we did see with some of us that were here for the 2002 plan, as I look around, I think I'm the only one. You know, oh yeah, you were here, that's right, because you still lived across the street from me. But there's few of us here, and due to, unfortunately, the transient nature of what we've been seeing in the city government and with staff, and, you know, it just, people move around and it does get lost. I mean, there was a time back in the day, we had the same mayor for 30 years. That doesn't happen anymore here, because
Well, the average age is 58 here. They're dropping dead like flies. And
Right.
I'm even closer
So
to the end than
that's
58,
a really
so.
important point. I appreciate you bringing that out, because I would encourage our city staff to implement something so that there is that legacy factor, that when and if some of our key staff people or our political people leave, there's something left behind that can get picked up by the next person in that position or the next people in those positions, because it does get lost. We saw a lot of it get lost from the 2002 plan. A lot of work went into that. Fortunately, some of it carried through, like the activity centers have finally come to fruition and things like that. But that's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
And I know the mayor has really been pushing for what they mentioned, the strategic planning. So that's when we're going to take the master plan and what they provided with the short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. And we, as a community, are going to create that strategic plan that says, okay, here's what the next year, 2 years look like, and start building that out, to your point, such that we become future-proof. We don't want our goals shouldn't change with staff. It shouldn't change
Correct.
with the commission. We should have our finger on the pulse of the initiatives that we've invested money in designs for, and then the project just drops for whatever reason, the commission changed, it's not important. So that is really where we're going to be able to have our biggest voice now, is in priorities, tracking. How do we want to do that? A dashboard's a great idea. There's several communities that have them, and I can look up a few and send them to you guys. But I've been looking at like what we're doing strategically and how we do keep our foot on the pedal to keep things moving forward, because you're absolutely correct. And my goal is that, like I said, nothing is dependent on getting done because this staff member's here. It should be no matter who comes and sits in this seat, those projects are continuing to move forward. We've, in the last couple of years, left, you know, for instance, with our permitting system, we were doing it by paper up until the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
With switching to the permitting software, those are things that we're doing now that give us the ability to track projects better and just holistically doing, you know, those kind of initiatives with software and things like that. It's going to be very helpful. But you're absolutely correct. If we don't take this and harness it through the next step of strategic planning, the fear is it will get lost, and we don't want that to happen. And we've brought Kinley Horn in on the strategic planning conversation as well. So they've already been a part of that. I can't say enough good things about how they engage the community. They built a lot of trust with the community, their personality, their approach, everything was very well thought out and based on our community. And I genuinely believe they came in with no preconceived notions about how it was going to go or what we should and shouldn't do, but they really listened, and I think it created a very open environment for our community. So the master plan, I think, came together really, really well due to their efforts. And the next step is that strategic planning, and that's when we should be really focused on what we're going to be doing. And like you said, the red light, green light, yellow light, exactly, completely agree.
Anyone else? Comments? Suggestions?
I have a comment. I just think that this got put together very well, and congratulations. I know it's a lot of work. And I think to this point, you know, this chapter 5, we have that takeoff point, and it's concise and it's obvious, and it's something that we can at least start from. And y'all really condensed a lot of information over the last, 2 years, basically. And it just looks really useful. It looks great. So That's my comment.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I'll add a little bit more to that. Thank you for saying that. We really appreciate that. And also thank you for mentioning the previous master plan. I read it. Back, front, back, upside down, sideways. I read it. And I mean, I truly did look for every single detail and look for every single thing that was actually implemented up till today. And I can say there was a lot of beautiful thoughts and a lot of beautiful drawings, but it was a little dense. It was a little hard to read, and it was not digestible. So coming into this master planning process, we wanted to make sure that every single person in this community could pick it up and read it and understand it. And truly, again, community-driven document, we wanted to make it for the community. So they're going to hold you accountable, hopefully. It's their voice, it's their words that really help shape this document. And we made it so they can pick it up and say, hey, I remember talking to someone about this. There it is, chapter 5, focus area 3, 3.1. Like, they should be able to have these conversations with anyone, whether they're on the commission or not, or they're going to be in a future commission. So again, we made this with the goal in mind that it is going to be a useful document that anyone can actually pick up and help implement. So that was a great comment, because that's really what we were striving to do.
I have a quick question. I read through it too, but not every page. I didn't see, is there anything in there about the sand dunes and sea oats going forward and
Yes.
how that's all 4 of the, I've had an issue with it. I've been on the commission for a long time, and
Yeah.
it doesn't ever seem to get addressed how the importance of it is.
Yeah.
And we have a ordinance on the books that says if you had a seawall, that you don't need the sand dunes in front of your property. And some of those, you're on the beach now and you're looking at the parking garage, which to me, if you're having visitors come, they'd rather go see sea oats, and they do protect us with the storm surge. And I know you mentioned everybody loves the turtles, and the turtles love the sand dunes and the sea oats.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that changed, and
Yeah.
I've been bringing it up for 20 years, and nothing
Yeah.
ever happens with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that is a recommendation that we do touch on. We do state that we want to make sure that education about the importance of dunes and sea oat planting is continual, and that the city prioritize. I believe in the past there was an annual sea oat planting that was happening. There was somebody from the state, I believe, because we had the conversation. I'd be happy to share it with you. But they did want to prioritize making sure that sea oat plantings were happening. It is tricky with storm seasons. Newly planted sea oats, they do need a little bit of time to take and establish, and that gets a little tricky with storm seasons.
They're already starting to grow back a little bit, but,
Yeah.
what I always recommended too was just a fence around them. We
Yes.
never had a fence, and then I saw people having wedding photos on top of the sand dunes, like, you're supposed to be on them, and,
Yeah.
kids playing, and,
Yeah.
they should be protected. That's what I think. But
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Good job.
Anyone else? Couple comments from me as I read through this and some of the notes I made. I know we're addressing some issues in the C3, C4 right after this, hopefully, which will help. But I think one of the things I did see, kind of one little piece that seemed a little bit contradictory to me, and this is not a criticism, I think it may be my own limited understanding of it. But one section we note more density, or encouraging mixed-use development, and this is not really anything that you guys would have known. It's more for our staff to look into as we go forward. On a lot of the C3 zoning categories right now, the lots are small. They're 80 feet deep in most cases on that commercial development or that commercial zoning. And in order to create the mixed use, there's not enough density there now. And I know density is a dirty word. Nobody wants to increase density. But I think if there needs to be something to encourage that mixed use development, because I can tell you along that Gulf Boulevard on the east side of Gulf Corridor, where we are now really, because of what's happened from the storm, a real opportunity to redevelop a lot of that stuff. It would encourage people to do this mixed use development if there was some density credit, for lack of a better term, if part of the property was used as commercial with residential on top. Because right now, I mean, I can give you an example. It's a piece of property I own, in full disclosure. I can only put 2 units on there. So if I put 2 commercial spaces on the ground, I got nothing else to work with. So that's not really a great use of that piece of property, where it could support more by having retail, cafe, restaurant, business on the ground, and then allows a couple units of density on top where people could live. Because those are different timelines of traffic, right? As far as density goes, the people that are living there are probably not there all day when the people downstairs are there all day, kind of thing, for the business. So I think that's just something we should look forward to when we're revising the LDRs. And some of those areas probably could benefit from, I hate to say increased density because nobody likes that word, but some mixed use grant of clemency, on allowing, not just one residential and 1 commercial, or just 2 commercial, or just 2, where you can get a little extra because we're trying to make it fit with what our master plan is supposed to look like. Totally agree with everything you guys did. I think it's wonderful. For us, it's hard to meet that vision without getting a little bit extra for the people that want to redevelop. And I think we need to do it sooner rather than later, because we're right in the throes of the redevelopment process. Transient docks mentioned in here, awesome, love that idea. I mean, we're surrounded by water and we have almost nowhere for public docking. I would love to see, some spaces identified right away as soon as possible where we could start that process. I know it's a long process, so identifying the spaces would be great. Short-term rentals are always a hot button. My opinion, I think we should probably designate some zones where short-term rentals are allowed, and spot zone some areas where short-term rentals are permitted. And I brought this up before, the 2002 plan that you have read and internalized, they proposed 3 activity centers, 1 in the middle of the city. We don't have that one yet. And I brought that up at a meeting I couldn't attend. I asked Mayor Brooks to bring it up. I don't know if she did or didn't. She probably did. We're somewhere in that 140th to 145th section, where if we just took that commercial zone on the east side of Gulf Boulevard and pushed the commercial zoning back 1 more lot so that it was commercially zoned along Palm Street, just on the one side of Palm Street even, that would give you some of those micro markets, some of the small cafes, the micro businesses, small personal service businesses, barbershops, cafes, art studios, things like that, that could allow that to be more of a pedestrian friendly, get people off of Gulf Boulevard and walking down Palm, that kind of area to get people off of the boulevard a little bit. And it would also then give opportunity for a little bit of assemblage so people go from Gulf to Palm with a commercial mixed use development. Yeah, I love it. Great. I love the idea of the waymaking signs. I think that lends so much to the personality of a community instead of the big bright green DOT reflective green and white signs that look like, partially Christmas all year round. I love those waymaking little arrows go this way for here. I love it. So anyway, you guys did a wonderful job. I really appreciate what you put into it. And I think this is something that we should live by.
So we did reach out to Ford Pinellas about this. So as you know, residential density is capped at what it is currently. We're not allowed to touch that.
Right.
One option, and they're actually been working, so Ford Pinellas provides technical support. They've been working with Indian Rocks Beach about adding a mixed-use bonus to their equivalent of C3 zoning in their city. And I've been keeping an eye on that. So basically that would still keep it at the same density and intensity, but instead of doing the proportional where you have to allocate the certain amount of lot area to one use and the other use, you'd be able to use the full lot.
Okay.
And there's a couple different ways they can calculate, but it's basically, you wouldn't have to worry about the proportional thing. So it'd still be capped at the 15 to 18 units per acre, depending on future land use, but the commercial wouldn't count against you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about.
But that would require a comp plan amendment. So that takes time because that has to go through the process and get reviewed by the state and some various other agencies too.
Write it up, man.
Well, we need to get this resolution done first at the board meeting and.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right, anyone else got any comments? Any public, anyone wanted to come up? Not sure if you had anything for this. You good? Okay, just want to make sure I acknowledge that you're here. If there's any other public comment. Okay, any other questions, comments for our awesome planning visioning team? Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
all
you guys
so
did a
much.
wonderful job. I love this. Thank you.
So we do need a motion on the resolution
Yes,
to.
this is,
we
you
do.
need to, make
This is
the
action
motion to
item.
recommend approval, recommend that the board approve the resolution.
I make the motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve Resolution 2025-09, adopting an updated Madeira Beach Master Plan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Any other discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue,
Yes.
Commissioner Marr,
Yes.
and Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies.
You don't need my vote?
Wonderful. You were the second.
Oh,
Motion second,
my
so you're
bad.
in favor, right? Should still vote technically. Vote in favor?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we always have in the past.
Sometimes people bring forward a motion just to get it voted on and they're going to vote against it. Understood. Yep. Proper Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you. Okay. Right. I need to keep us straight. I got to tell you all the time. So the second item of new business is ordinance 2025-19 C3 zoning district setbacks. This will be a public hearing.
Andrew's going to go through this with you guys, but just to be clear, so simultaneously with the master plan, we also had Kimley Horn look at the C3, C4 code, and they mentioned code updates. What you see before you matches what their recommendation was, but this is a private application for this text change amendment. So while it follows what they recommended, it pertains to that. It's not directly related to the master plan per se. It's just the timing of it works and is the same as what Kimley Horn had recommended for C3. It is not the full changes, though. It is specific to what the applicant is asking for. So I'll let Andrew take it from there.
And to clarify why there's a printed copy, there was some small language changes Attorney Trask wanted us to do. It doesn't change the intent of the ordinance. It more clarifies because there are lots less than 60 feet in width, and we currently didn't reference what side setbacks they would have if they're like multifamily or temporary lodging or mixed use. So this clarifies that and clarifies if you have exactly 80 feet or 120 feet. And then we also include, we require for any corner lot to have that 10 feet of side setback along the street adjacent side. But we want to make sure to include this section because right now it's in this like random part of our code that unless if you know where it is, you wouldn't know where it is. But in our memo, I just summarized what was being proposed that the applicant was reducing the front yard setback from 25 feet to 10 feet. Currently, as you know, along Gulf Boulevard, when it was widened, a lot of the properties lost a significant amount of their street frontage, which impacted setbacks, parking, and some of them are almost right up on where the right of way is currently. So even in some cases, if those were redeveloped, the buildings would actually be further back than what they currently are. But the current 25 feet was kind of excessive, and it would be more of like a setback you'd see in more like a suburban area, like in Pasco County, than on Gulf Boulevard here, where we want kind of these smaller, like pedestrian-oriented commercial uses. So this would put it more in line with what we would like to see along Gulf Boulevard. And it's consistent with the Madeira Beach Comprehensive Plan, the Town Center Special Area Plan, which actually proposed to reduce the front setback, but we unfortunately didn't adopt that from it. And then the proposed Madeira Beach Master Plan, and I listed the from it what policies objective like support it. As you can see, and then with the proposed Madeira Beach Master Plan, I've referenced the sections that support it. City staff does recommend the approval of the, because it definitely helps support property owners along like Gulf Boulevard and 150th to be able to better use their properties, and when if they do it create kind of these smaller because one of the things we did keep is if you do own more land, though, we do require more side setback, because we don't want a wall of very like wide building. So we still kept that, and if you do something like that's just commercial, we still require an additional 5-foot buffer from residential properties. So we did keep those limitations in place, but this will allow for those smaller, less than 120 feet width lots to have a bit more flexibility when they're doing mixed use, and for all to have the reduced front setback though too, which should bring more of those properties either into conform or if they redevelop, because right now a lot of them are right up on Gulf Boulevard. So does the applicant want to say anything additional?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name's Dave Wanzik, and I am the applicant and the owner of the property. I'm a local, been in Pinellas County all my life, love Madeira Beach. And I am, like Andrew just said, I went ahead and did the application because I'm actually looking to do exactly what you've been talking about tonight, is put a little mixed-use building on Gulf Boulevard, and I think it's exactly what needs to go there right now. The current existing property has been destroyed from the hurricanes, so it's just sitting there. And actually the property that's going to be demolished sits right on the setback. So by going back with what I'm proposing to put there, I'm actually going to be making a smaller footprint than what's already existing there. So I think it's right in line with the plan of the city. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Good. Thank you.
I did have a question.
Sorry.
It looks like we have a split between up to 80 and then 80 to 120, but they both have the same setback. Am I reading that wrong?
Oh, that is correct. That section was kind of set up a little bit strange, so it was kind of trying to fit like that language into our current without having to just cross everything out and
That's what I assumed, but yeah,
Yeah.
it just looked a little weird. I just want to make sure that was true. And the second question is I don't know if we have any commercial lots that are trapezoidal or pie-shaped, but is this up to 80, 120, 240, is that the big number, the small number, or the average number? Because I think you'd want to be clear, if you don't have parallel lines and you got a lot that goes from 125 feet to 110 feet in the back, say, right?
Which number do you use?
Which number are you using to tell me whether I need a bigger setback?
So in our code, we have a definition for lot width, where we've most of them are actually pretty rectangular, like it's used, like, so that it's not, that hasn't been an issue, but we do have a way of calculating like the average, or sort of average.
I just like to torture Andrew, really, but
I can pull up the definition.
I would just recommend somebody write in some words on what bloody number it is, the big one, the small one, or the average one. I just go with the big one and make it easy. It's not a calculus problem.
Yeah, there's
So.
Here's how we define it. That's why I wanted to pull up the exact section of the, because it's worded a very specific way.
So lot width does have a definition?
Yep.
Okay, very
Yep,
nice.
and yep, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I didn't want to.
I can't read it with my 63-year-old eyeballs.
The minimum lot.
Does it address wonky shaped lots?
So the minimum lot width of any lot is the distance measured in the mean direction of the front and rear lot line from the midpoint of one sideline to the midpoint of the opposite sideline.
At the middle of the lot.
Who the hell wrote that? Come on.
It's the middle.
Okay,
We
good
didn't
enough.
write that.
We got there the hard way, but I'm satisfied that there's a definition
There is a definition.
for that.
Right.
I'm good.
Perfect, perfect.
No problem, yeah. But for the most part, though, like with the commercial, like the C3 zoning lots, they're pretty rectangular at least.
on the application.
It's the R2 zoning that has some of those weird pie-shaped lots, like
It's on
so, that one. But C3 is usually pretty consistent with the sizes.
15544 or something.
Yeah, I can go back to the. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Because this is an action item. So the recommendation, it would be going to the board as a first reading. So just
don't
to
see it on here.
clarify that.
What, just out of curiosity, Mr. Noble was asking, what's the address of your property? Just out of curiosity.
15227 Gulf Boulevard.
5227, okay.
I think it used to be a French restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been sitting there so long. I knew it was in the master plan to change these setback requirements, but I'm just kind of speeding up the process because the building's been sitting there, full of flood water for the last year plus.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. I mean, for my comments, I think it's what we need to do. I mean, when a lot of those lots, again, go back to an 80-foot depth because of the widening of Gulf Boulevard, they were 110, 120 feet deep. Now, if you have an 80-foot deep lot with a 25-foot setback on the front and 10 to 15 feet on the rear, your building envelope's really small.
Yeah.
So this just makes perfect sense. It blends right into what our plan looks like, creating a better city streetscape, more pedestrian friendly, moves the businesses up to the front, parking in the back. You don't have people backing out on a Gulf Boulevard and things like that, creating those dangerous traffic environments. So I'm all for it.
When I know with the residential, we let them build on the existing footprint. Is that something we could look at, or we don't want to?
So that would be in the nonconformances section under rebuilding after catastrophic loss, which we can look at it as separate ordinance, but this one allows for the build back something reasonable that because we don't want people to build up right on Gulf Boulevard either. We want to make sure that there is that 10-foot, like especially if the sidewalks ever expanded, and to not have a canyon of building either. So the 10-foot was a reasonable compromise on that.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Anybody got a motion for me?
I motion to approve.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve ordinance 2025-19 C3 zoning district setbacks based on what was presented to us in the printed form. So there were a couple minor changes from what was emailed to you. So it's what is on the printed form, right? Just for clarification. So that's our motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Rue, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Will we please call the roll?
Commissioner Cloud?
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Commissioner Marr?
Yes.
Commissioner Noble?
Yes.
Chairman Wyckoff?
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for the good work.
Awesome.
No old business, no administrative staff presentations. Moving right along. Any other discussion from our planning commission members? Anything you'd like to bring up at this time?
Following what we just approved, how can we just take that next step, right? We just said we're kind of doing what we needed to do for this specific application, but it seems like we have a little bit of momentum to try and implement something that's part of that master plan. So I didn't want to bog that down, in that discussion, but,
So next month, I can bring the proposed changes that Kimley Horn suggested. I didn't bring it with this meeting because I didn't want to confuse everyone, because at the VOC workshop meeting, I had it with that, and so you had this agenda where you had just the ordinance, the C3 ordinance stuff, and then just randomly after the master plan, you had more C3, and C4 stuff too, and it was really confusing, and I didn't want to confuse you guys or the public, so it was cleaner to just focus on master plan resolution, C3 zoning based on the applicant's request. And then next month, as a discussion item, have the proposed Kimley Horn C3, C4 changes, because some of those like would require a comp plan amendment to implement. So it'll take more time to discuss, and obviously like we'll have to have like neighborhood workshops and that too.
I just think we should keep the momentum going because
Absolutely.
it's already top of mind. We've already done something for it. It just makes it less of a headache to go back and have everyone rethink about it and wonder where we came from. And I mean, we're just talking about how to get stuff implemented and checked off. So that'd be great if we could bring that to the next meeting.
Yeah, great point. Love to see that used as a springboard to keep things going. Good stuff.
You guys will
Yes, sir.
start seeing a lot of ordinance, a lot of LDR things to become more cohesive throughout the code. We have just a lot of contradictory information, information scattered in places it shouldn't be and not where it needs to be. So that's the next 12 months. You guys are going to be on a rolling circle of seeing us continually trying to get that, especially now that we have the master plan behind us.
Yeah.
We'll be able to start kind of moving forward. We have that to lean back on. So that is absolutely our goal, is to keep our foot on the gas pedal there.
Excellent. Mr. Conley?
What you were saying about adding another activity center as to 3 between 140th and 148th?
145th-ish. Yeah,
Well, let's.
Somewhere around there.
Can we go?
you can go wherever you want. Yeah, sure.
So
Oh, I'm just,
I think that might get too big to go 148th.
So what I'm getting at is like when I first came to Madeira Beach, there was a lot of mom and pop shops. There are none anymore except Candy Cone or whatever that place is called.
Candy Kitchen, yep.
Candy Kitchen. That's probably one of the only ones that has lasted. All the rest of them now with the flood, you lost the taco place, the tea garden behind it. What I'm getting at is a lot of small businesses can't afford to go down and pay the rent at John's Pass. And it's going to be the same thing up here at 150th. So to have a second place that, I mean, I see that as a great idea that you brought up, having a section that doesn't relate to the tourists, like John's Pass is basically all tourism, and who knows what the beachcomber is going to be. I mean, what he's going to draw there. So to have this section, what you were talking about, I think it would behoove Madeira Beach to try to get that section in the works along with this master plan, because that would bring back the small mom and pop businesses that we don't have here. I mean, tell me where you're going to go get a Hero on Gulf Boulevard. Hello? Can I have a slice of pizza on Gulf Boulevard?
Yeah,
Where?
my idea was,
So,
I proposed like two things. One was to go from 140th to 143rd, which is where the Speedway is, right? Palm goes from 140th to 143rd uninterrupted, right? So that made a nice little box. And you're only changing those properties on the backside,
Right.
on one side of Palm. The second half, the bigger plan would be to jump over the Speedway, including it, and go to 144th or 145th. That would then get up to where the taco place was, and
would be perfect.
yeah, and that would add, because to me, going back a billion years when I moved here, Johns Pass Village was a village, And there was a doctor's office in there. There was an eye doctor. There was a grocery store with a real live butcher in the back with a bloody apron cutting up meat. I mean, it was a village, and that serviced the locals. We don't really have that now. So, I mean, I've lived here since I was 12 years old, and now if I want those personal services, I'm off the island, to go find them. Or there's a few in Treasure Island, here and there. But I think it almost like I don't know what's the word, like a less intense activity center, for lack of a better term, where we've got super intensity in Johns Pass, super intensity in Madeira Way, and then you have one more like a community center, for lack of a better descriptor, where it's more of a local centric thing, where you have those little cafes where you can go get a little sandwich, or you could go grab a bagel, or, whatever, mom and pop type stuff. And it seems like that's a pretty natural corridor to do that. And it creates a little, you could have a little pedestrian friendly. If you only did it from 140th to 143rd, that's a nice little corridor. And then you bump into the Speedway, and that's a pretty intense property itself, right? So it's not like it's creating an intense use next to properties that don't have any intensity.
Right.
But you have the two outward, you kind of would end up having two outward focusing anchors on either end of Madeira
Right.
Beach with an inward focusing piece in the middle. And quite frankly, having that as a break in the center makes it much more attractive to walk, or however you want to go, from Johns Pass up to where the
Middle.
Beachcomber is.
Yeah.
Because if you're starting down Johns Pass and then you're just walking by no man's land it gets really boring. There's no break.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
it
people
would-
are
it
likely
would
to go
work.
from one end to the middle, or the
Yep.
middle to an end, but
Yep.
not likely to go from end to end.
Right. But you would go from end, you would more likely go from end to end if you had something in the
To
middle.
stop at.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Food for thought.
Adding 10, 15 new businesses.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Boy, thank you.
so on a positive note, so I did reach out to Forward Pinellas. So a lot of these properties that were being discussed currently have the residential medium future land use. And in the countywide rules, there are some commercial uses that would be allowed if it was defined in our comp plan. So I wanted to show that retail commercial up to 3 acres, if it
Okay.
was in our comp plan and in the zoning, would be an allowed use. Currently, it is not in our comp plan as an allowed use, but I was just showing this because the challenge, especially post-Hurricane Helene, is that the county is very skeptical about any increase in density or intensity, including commercial intensity. It seems like with what's going on in Indian Rocks Beach, and that's their land use is retail and services, like ours along Gulf Boulevard, that the county's open to allowing for certain, like a mixed use bonus, but it wouldn't increase the current maximum density and intensity. But changing from residential medium is a lower intensity and density land use to, let's say, activity center or even retail and services, it's a pretty big jump. While with this would allow us to keep the current residential medium land use, but give some flexibility with the limitations of how much land could be, so you wouldn't.
So that means 3 acres of that category.
Or up
to 3 acres of that, total usage of up to 3 acres within that category.
I think it would come down to the parcel size. It's usually by parcel size. So basically, this would allow for the neighborhood retail that you guys were talking about, but wouldn't allow for someone to buy up a bunch of land to build like a public. Well, we already have a Publix, but like a larger retail thing that
Sure.
wouldn't. So this would be more neighborhood oriented.
Yeah.
Potentially another option. We did this down Johns Pass on the beach side of Gulf Boulevard. To allow for commercial use, we make it a special exception use.
Okay.
So it has to go to public hearing. We did one recently for a fruit float at their brick and mortar location, where it was a special exception use. It got approved. It's but that's like, we did it on that side because it's close to residential stuff and people are more sensitive to that, like some of those uses near residential. So that would be, one option would be is if you did add it as a use in the land use and either use the current zoning or a different zone, you could require a special exception use, so it goes to public hearing if there's, but it really come down to how the community would feel about having commercial uses closer to residential uses and what guardrails they would want if they wanted to be allowed by right as a permitted use or as a special exception.
Yeah,
use.
I'm not suggesting we get in the weeds on it tonight,
Yeah.
but just something
just
to put
wanted
on
to
your radar that
show- yeah.
maybe that's something that in concert with our planners,
Yeah.
can come up with some creative ideas on how it works, how it keeps in with
Yeah.
Pinellas County's requirements,
Yeah.
yet creates a little more of a sense of community in the center of the town.
Because I think this wouldn't require a land use change. This would be, it'd still be a comp plan, but it'd be a little bit more controlled, because the challenge with the activities they're going to expect, like a special area plan, and with the Johns Pass one, the justify was really the existing development powers didn't match with that land use. The problem along Gulf Boulevard, for the most part, the retail and services category lines up with what's been built there.
Okay.
So you have to, in post-Helene, it seems like they're a little more skeptical of some of that. But this, just as an example, would be something we could do without having to do a full land use change. We could still keep the residential medium category on those lots, but allow for some limited commercial uses.
Okay, good stuff. I learned something today.
Thank you.
All right, any more? That sounds like it might be it. Our next meeting is December 1st.
Yep.
Can't believe it. We're already
Yep.
talking about December, like our next thing to do. Scary. That's about it. So I guess we'll call this meeting adjourned at 7:11. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good talk.
Appreciate all of you.